let's talk about Darcy and what the future looks like. This is going to be a bit of a long video, so if you want to pause it now and grab yourself a drink, then go for it. I didn't really know where to start, but I'm going to start by saying thank you. I posted the video on Thursday and I turned everything off, and I still haven't looked at the video, but my mum has read some of your comments, and she said that they set her off as well and that they were lovely. And I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody that supported us and sent their condolences and their love and their support, because it's been an overwhelmingly hard few days, and the outreach from people has just been phenomenal. And on behalf of me and Mum, thank you for your kindness. I found the strength yesterday to finally open and read a few messages. I had over 500 private messages, so I answered a few, but I still haven't read the comments. I will at some point go through and read the comments when I feel that I can, but please don't expect me to reply to 7,000 of you, because I just can't. But thank you to the strangers that never knew Darcy but still could feel the pain, and thank you to my long-term followers and my new followers and the companies and all my friends and family, and just thank you from me and Mum. Thank you. There's been a few questions about what happened, so I'm gonna briefly touch on that. It's still quite raw and painful for me, but I know that Darcy was loved and appreciated by so many of you, and I think you need to fully understand what happened, and I think by maybe me telling you, it might help me process it a bit. So the last video update I gave you was a couple of weeks ago, and it had been about 2.5 weeks since the gentamicin injection, and the vet was coming out to check if the injections had worked, and we couldn't tell if the injections had worked because the ulcer that we were already aware that Darcy had got worse. So we then had to treat the ulcer, which we did, and we treated the ulcer, and her vet came back out 10 days later to check the progress of it, and the ulcer had improved approximately by about 20%. The ulcer had improved, but Darcy's pain levels hadn't, and she was on painkillers and had local anaesthetic into her eye, and she was still stood there quietly eating her hay nut with her eye firmly shut. And it is incredibly hard to accept the fact that you can't stop that pain for her. And it's not like it's a leg where you can judge how much pain they're in by how high they're limping when you trot them up. An eye is incredibly difficult to understand how much pain she's in, but with painkillers and local anaesthetic, she wasn't happy, and she'd obviously had the gentamicin injection and the steroid injections, and yeah, we couldn't control her pain for her, and that was the hardest thing to accept. We couldn't control her pain levels, and I had to make a decision on Monday about what Darcy's future looked like. And I've spoken before about why I wasn't prepared to take her eye, and I stand by that. I have done a video before about this. For people that haven't seen it, my reasoning for not taking her eye is she had the same diagnosis in the other eye. We could go a week, we could go a month, we could go 6 months, we could go another year, but eventually the other eye will go. On top of the cataracts diagnosis, not only would I be taking away half of her sight, she'd be losing the sight in the other one slowly anyway. And then obviously the other diagnosis that she had, just it wasn't a feasible long-term solution for her. And if I was to take the eye, knowing how reactive that horse can become when she's stressed, I would risk setting her back to a place that she was 10 years ago when she was not a happy horse. And I'd rather her last days be as happy as they could be in a place where she felt safe than put her through something that I felt was incredibly invasive and not the right decision for her. I know some of you will say I don't need to justify myself, and I know that, and I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to explain my thought process so that you guys can understand it as well. And I think sometimes as humans we do things because we can rather than because we should. and I had to make a decision based on the horse that I know inside and out, and not a horse that you guys see in 1 minute clips on a video a couple of times a week. And please understand that this horse hasn't always had the happiest of life, and that's why she was a pound. From the decision on Monday, we increased Darcy's painkillers for the last few days that she had, and even with the increased dosage, just to keep her as comfortable as possible, she was still in a tremendous amount of pain, and that only solidified our frustration at not being able to control and help her pain levels for her. And it was incredibly hard to continue as normal and still go ahead with my prior commitments in those few days leading up to it. No matter that my heart was breaking, the world still spins and time still keeps moving, and it was hard to pretend that I was okay when I really wasn't, and I'm still not okay. Darcy was put to sleep on Thursday the 7th of August at 2 o'clock, and just before her final moments, she was grazing the last of the clover on the lawn, and there were 2 4-leaf clovers. 2. One for me and one for Mum. And she went as peacefully as she could with just me and Mum and the vet that's been treating her for months. And I went and got Leo and brought him up so that he could say goodbye to her, and understand as much as a young horse could understand that she wasn't answering him. And that evening he called and called and kept coming to me for comfort, and I stayed down here until it was nearly dark, and just cried for hours. A lot of you probably don't know the full background of Darcy. You do if you followed me for a long time, but Darcy was the 1 pound horse, and I was barely 21 years old when she came into our lives from a friend. And Darcy's backstory isn't one of neglect or abuse or anything like that. Darcy was just an incredibly misunderstood horse, and she was actually called Dolly. Her passport is Dolly. She is called Dolly, but we renamed her Darcy because not only did Dolly not suit her, but she was going to have a completely different life with us, and Darcy suited her. And her show name was Darcy Bustle, like the ballerina. For my older audience, you'll know who that is. And Darcy, in the early years, Darcy was definitely far too much horse for me. I was massively overhorsed by that mare, and I remember vividly in the first few months we had her, I was in the arena with her, and Darcy used to continuously rush off. You can put your legs on her, you can touch her mouth. Like she was a manic mess, and I was constantly telling her to slow down, and she'd had enough of me constantly telling her to slow down, and she reared up and flipped herself over with me on top. And I remember landing with her on top of me and thinking, get your feet out the stirrups or you're going to get dragged. Get your feet out the stirrups. And I managed to slip them out the stirrups as she was trying to get off of me. And then she got up and I didn't get up. I was incredibly severely winded. My whole body was screaming at me, and I was incredibly lucky to eventually get up from the floor with not a single broken bone. And she stood next to me in the arena, just out of eye line, but I could hear her. And she stood there and just waited for help to arrive. And it was from that moment that I think we had an understanding. And I stopped nitpicking at her. I stopped continuously saying, like, slow down, do it nicely. Because she wasn't the type of horse that needed that. She just needed somebody to get on her back and go, okay, fine, go as fast as you like. Go as far as you like. As long as you're safe in the moments that matter, that's fine, do what you like. And that is how our relationship grew. I didn't mind how fast she trotted. I didn't mind that we didn't canter, we just galloped everywhere. And we developed a really good bond by me not continuously nitpicking at her, and I think she needed that. In the early years of having Darcy, we tried to find a sharer for her. My work commitment, stuff like that, sometimes you need an extra pair of hands, and we just couldn't find anybody that could ride her. Not saying that I could ride her, I just was fearless and young, but she scared quite a lot of people when they got on her back, and she was, and still was to this day, an incredibly sensitive mare. And she was definitely not a mare that you could tell to do something. You definitely had to ask her very nicely. So we sort of gave up trying to find a sharer, and then out of the blue this lovely young woman called Megan appeared, and she came down to try her. And Megan was fresh over from New Zealand. She was working over here for a couple of years, and Megan turned up, and it got to the point where I couldn't watch what was going on. If we tried to find a sharer, my heart was in my mouth. I felt sick, I couldn't watch. I left that to Mum, and I'd disappear onto the yard. And I went back round 10 minutes later, and there Darcy was, just canting around beautifully with Megan on her back. It's the best I've ever seen that horse ridden. And Megan was a amazing rider. She got the best out of Darcy, and Darcy really liked Megan and the way she rode her, and Megan and Darcy successfully competed, just low level unaffiliated stuff, but everywhere they went they usually came home first place. And it was so nice to see Darcy in her element, and the potential that was there that was very much wasted on me. In a way, I wish that Darcy had come to me a little bit later in my life. I think at 21 I didn't have the patience or the understanding of horses, or the knowledge, or even the want to really do anything with that. And if she had come into my life later on, where I had grown more as a person, I think we would have had an even better bond than we did in the end. Obviously, Megan sadly had to leave and eventually go back to New Zealand, but they were some really good couple of years. And then after Megan, we found a lovely girl called Tilly who rode Darcy really nicely, and she was going to do some dressage on Darcy, but journeys and travelling, it just didn't work out. But Tilly has always stayed in contact, and she was so lovely, and Tilly actually came and took those last photos of me and Darcy together in the woods, and I'll be forever grateful for those photos. I did, in the back of my mind, have a gut feeling that eventually it may come to this, so those photos were my just in case photos, on top of I really need a new profile picture because I very much have outlived the one that I currently have, but it's the best photo I have. Darcy has been in my life for nearly 13 years, and the biggest thing for me is the freedom that I've lost. And I know everyone says they feel free when they're riding, but this is a different type of freedom, and this is a freedom where no matter where I went, and no matter what happened, no matter what we came across that ride, I knew that I'd come home okay. And to have that freedom and that bond with an animal, that it didn't matter what she did, I knew that I'd be safe in the moments that counted. I'm always going to be searching for that, probably for the rest of my life. And I'll try to instill some of that brilliantness that was Darcy into that young man there, but there won't be another horse like Darcy in my lifetime. And that is the biggest sorrow that I feel. What does life look like without Darcy? What does the future look like? Firstly, Endurance with Darcy will always be Endurance with Darcy. That name is a legacy not just to the discipline Endurance, but everything we endured about each other and about our story. And she started the Horses versus Dogs series, and it's her legacy. So Endurance with Darcy will remain Endurance with Darcy, and it gives me a little bit of peace to know that when people mistakenly think that I'm called Darcy, I get to remember her every time that happens. And it will stay like that. I'm staying Endurance with Darcy, even though she's not here to be part of it anymore. what's going to happen with Leo and Maisie? Nothing. Leo has just lost the horse that's been a constant in his life for over the last year, and Darcy and Leo were companions, and as much as Darcy bullied him, she really did like him, and it's a big loss for Leo to go through, and right now nothing's going to change. What the future looks like and holds, I don't know, but for now Leo and Maisie are quite happy where they are. I'll see what Maisie's like when I try and take Leo away for a little walk, if I take him out to brush him and stuff, and I'll judge from there what I need to do to keep her occupied for the hour that Leo's out in the field a couple of times a week. I only wanted Leo to do 3 shows this year and he's done 5, so Leo probably won't do another show this year, and if he does then great, but it's not something that I'm overly fussed about or worried about, and I can do a lot of Leo's continued education from inside this field if I need to. So right now nothing's going to change for them. Would I get another horse in the future? I don't know, but that's not on the cards right now. I'm not even thinking about another horse right now. I don't want another horse right now. If I want to go and ride a horse, there's lots of horses around me I can go and ride, and I can still ride Max. So a horse to ride is not at the front of my mind right now, and it probably won't be for a long time. I will resume posting usual content in a few days' time. The world doesn't stop just because I'm hurting, and as each day goes past, it's less and less raw. The hardest bit was the first couple of days coming down and not seeing her face at the gate demanding her breakfast as loud as she could, and doing her hoo-hoos at me, as I called them, and not seeing her face in the rearview mirror as I drove down, and her buckets and things not being made up for dinner, and they were the hard bits. And as days got on, it's got less raw, and I do enjoy posting video content, and like I said, I can't, the world won't stop for me. And if you have watched this the whole way through, please don't write in the comments what I'm about to tell you, let people find out for themselves, but there is a little announcement. As you know, me and Max and Mum qualified for the Sunshine Tour, and we got in. So Max will be competing at the Sunshine Tour, or the unaffiliated nationals as people like to nickname them. On the Thursday we will both be competing, Max. So if you're there, please come and see me. Don't shy away just because I might cry. And yeah, thank you for watching, and thank you for your support, and much love from me and all of our crew. Thank you.